Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Might be the last show of the camp chatter because training camp is winding up for the Baltimore Ravens and other teams as they prepare for the second preseason game. Ravens play on Monday night and have that third preseason game coming up. So we have some things to talk about as we shift from training camp into starting to look at this roster, some of the options the Ravens may have. And here to join me, my good friend Ken McKusick. Film Study Baltimore is the website. Film Study Ravens is his handle on Twitter at Film Study Ravens, as you see. All his links will be below. Ken, anything that you're plugging right now, though? Like what I know you work pretty much every day on Ravens stuff. What's going on at Film Study Baltimore right now?
Yeah, we got a normal kind of series of shows, but the camp notes have been out there. There's 9 of those from times I went to camp this year, and there's all the other normal stuff we do, whether it's transactions or looking at the preview of the games. Those are out there. They have a new guy joining me for those who was quite good. And we'll be starting up with it. We have actually the first 2 shows, offense and defense, are out there. So that's the normal stuff everybody's used to.
Game reviews, game previews, offensive line grades, which I find very helpful. I like to compare yours to what I see, and sometimes you help catch me on some things that maybe I missed. So very useful stuff. You guys probably know Ken and I get to work together. Blessed to work with them a lot, so this is great. So Ken, shift into this roster though. The Ravens obviously only have 53 spots on the roster, but as veteran Ravens fans know, they do their best to keep every player that they can. And some of these players, like we saw with Brent Urban last year and probably Brent Urban again this year, is they'll make a handshake deal. He won't be on the initial 53, but the player can come back and sign as they put other players on IR. What are the rules around that, though? Could you just briefly explain to us, like, what makes a player eligible and who would make a handshake candidate? What's the profile?
Sure. Well, the key is you're releasing that player. So there's a couple of things that have to be effectively true. They have to have a non-guaranteed salary for this year. They can't be on their rookie deals because otherwise you'd be releasing somebody with time left on their contract. Now, in theory, you could still do it with someone like that, but you wouldn't want to if you had a multi-year arrangement with them at the rookie level. So you wouldn't do that. And if they are on the rookie deals, they have to pass through waivers. So they get the opportunity to be claimed by other teams in reverse order of record, and like the draft, that order. And so you would risk losing any player that you actually wanted to keep if you were to release a rookie like that. However, vested veterans do not go through the waiver process. Anybody who's in their 5th or greater year does not go through that waiver process. And let's not go down the rabbit hole of first round draft picks who are on their 5th year. Just generally 5th year veterans who you are making the minimum are fine to release in this way. If they have a contract that's larger than that, they might take offense, obviously, to being released in that way and re-signed. If they have a contract that is right at the vet minimum, which is true of a number of players, then they make excellent candidates for this, and that's a way teams use to effectively expand their effective roster from 53 to 57 or 58. Now, the difference between, say, 53 and 57, those extra 4 people are people who are hurt going into the season, and you don't want to put them on season-ending IR. So if you're put on IR at cutdown day, meaning before the cutdown occurs, then you're on season-ending IR. You cannot come back and play for anybody this year. You mean Ravens property if you are for time after that. So they've had a number of players they've stashed on IR for full seasons, both with injuries and, of course, sometimes particularly in the distant past without injuries. They've done it anyway, and they kind of make something up. But with when they have usually a short-term injury, they can come back under one of 8 designated to return slots that the Ravens have. So they can bring back 8 players during the year. It's common to want to put guys with, say anywhere between maybe a 3 and an 8 or 10 week injury on this roster use a handshake deal with a vested veteran. You gave Brent Urban, I think, as a during our production meeting anyway, as a good example of a player who the Ravens can make a handshake agreement with him and say, hey, Brent, we're cutting you again this year. We're going to bring you back, and we'll still pay you the same salary. They might even give him a little bit extra just to go through the price, so 25,000, something like that. Not a lot of money. A lot of money you or me, but not a lot of money to a ball player necessarily, but enough to incent them maybe a little bit, or maybe not at all. Maybe they just say, hey, this is a deal, guys. We you knew this in front when we signed you, is that there's a chance of doing this. And the Ravens have a number of candidates on the roster who fit that bill.
So, the goal is, okay, Marlon Humphrey may be out the first few weeks, something like that. We don't want to put him on IR. We don't want to have him have to miss a mandatory amount of time. So Marlon Humphrey, is going to make the initial roster and then be moved to, go ahead, Ken.
I just want to say it is important that if they go on IR, you put them on the roster, then you IR them before you re-sign your handshake guy. And so when they go on that IR, there is a minimum amount of time they have to stay. And it's been changing a lot under the CBA. It was 4 weeks. It might be 3 weeks now. But anyway, it's several weeks they have to stay there. So you don't do it for just anybody, just to stash 5 additional guys you want to bring back, who are injured at some point later in the year. They're required to miss some time. So there is a downside to it.
There you go. So, okay, Brent Urban has done it before. Being willing, knowing that you're going to have a role on this team, liking it in Baltimore, having some kind of rapport with the team, also some intangibles that obviously we don't know about, but Brent Urban likes it here. His wife is from here, I believe. Who are some other candidates that are like Brent Urban that could be brought back that, okay, they're going to be playing for this team maybe week 1, week 2, week 3, but they won't be listed on that initial roster?
Right. So the running backs, none of them exactly fit the bill because they all make more than the minimum. So Justice Hill might be somebody you'd think of, but he's on a 2-year deal for like $4.5 million now. And Gus Edwards makes more than the minimum. And of course, Dobbins is still a 4th-year player. And Ricard, he could be cut for a savings. He actually could be cut, but he wouldn't be a handshake deal kind of thing. This would be it would be a more difficult separation than that. Nelson Aguilar, I believe, is making like $3 million or something. So I don't think he's a chance to kind of stick in my craw there too. But let's see who else we got. Kevin Zeitler's in his 12th year, is not a candidate. David Sharp is actually in his 5th year. He would be a candidate, except I think the Ravens might not want to lose him because he's a tackle. So don't know if he's an ideal guy or not. And I'm just working down the groups. Obviously, nothing's happening with Morgan Moses, Ronnie Stanley, or Roquan Smith, even though they have the proper tenure for it. Tyus Bowser is on NFI, so he doesn't even have to go on that. He can stay on that if until he's ready. Rock Yasin, Kayvon Seymour would be a good possibility for it. He's a 6th-year player. If you want to continue on, Arthur Mollett, if he makes the team, would be a possibility for it. So that's a pretty good. Well, I guess it would be if he didn't make the team, he'd be a possibility to come back on a handshake deal. Daryl Worley, excellent chance for that, by the way. They probably have already had that discussion with Daryl, by the way, because I think he's going to make the team.
How about Delshon Phillips? He's another guy that came to my mind. I think it's.
Oh, did I go by him?
I think it's only 100,000 guaranteed, Ken. So it's not much. Looks like 100,000 out of his 1,100 is guaranteed, or dead money at least, is the way the over the cap's listing it. But
yeah, that it'd be possible. He's in year 4, so he has to go through waivers.
Okay.
So okay. They might not want to do that. And then, I'm not sure what Tyler Ott is making right now, but as a Pro Bowler, he's probably making more than minimum, and it's probably something you wouldn't want to take a chance on. And then on that defensive line, there used to be guys like McPhee there who would be guys that they could maybe do this to, but now Brent Urban is the only one that remains. So it looks like Urban, Worley, and Seymour and Mollett are probably the best chances of the players they currently have.
There you go. So you mentioned Pat Ricard here, and My confidence in him being on the team, I got to be honest, Ken, it's kind of waned a little bit as the weeks have gone on. I see a place for Pat Ricard as the fourth tight end, so to speak, on this roster, the designated blocker on this roster, whether it be in line next to the right tackle helping, maybe he's in the backfield, closing out games. But the Ravens, as you mentioned, would save money by cutting Pat Ricard. And they also have this tight end, this undrafted rookie free agent tight end, Travis Vokolek, on the roster. Studied him before the draft process. His blocking was evident there. That's what he can do. I feel like anything in the past game as a pro is a bonus. But if not this year, then in years to come, I expect Vokolek to be a plus blocking tight end, a functional blocking tight end. So you could have a guy like that under team control for 3 or 4 years, but you also have a veteran like Ricard. Is there a competition there? Is Pat Ricard's spot safe? I think you know where I'm going with this. Any thoughts on this conversation? Even if you make 2 or 3 points, Ken, go ahead and take your time.
I'll be fairly quick. I think it's all about Patrick Ricard's health at this point. I think if he's healthy, they probably want him. There is a fairly minimal savings this year from cutting Ricard. It's 1.75 million, if I recall, from OTC, and they have to then replace his spot on the 51 because he'd expect him to make it otherwise. And if they do, that'll cost him a bare minimum of 700,000 and change. So it's a $1 million savings, or maybe a $700,000 savings if they get a vet min guy. So
Okay.
it's not a gigantic savings, but if they don't feel like Patrick Ricard's ready to go, then he could be cut. So if they don't really feel, and he was at the podium 2 days ago, yesterday he was at the podium and talking about his hip injury last year. And first of all, you just realize this is about the toughest son of a bitch you've ever seen, to talk about how he played through hip pain. And he could actually tell what his injury was because it was the same as it had been the 2 years before when he had the other hip have the same pain. And, he just had to work through it with it, gave all the credit to the training staff and whatnot for keeping him healthy and keeping him, able to deal with the pain management issues anyway. And so he went through that. In theory, he's fine now because both hips have been completed. On the other hand, the Ravens may really be concerned about exactly where he is physically, if he's had the kind of off season he needs to have to play. And if they don't feel like he has, then that would be the reason I think they cut him. I think Vokolek is probably not. I mean, blocking tight ends do get passed around like, COVID in terms of around the league and people wanting them. But I don't think Vokolek. I always do that. Vokolek is so good in terms of his versatility and being in the backfield or in line or whatever that he'll be a huge hot commodity right off the bat. So I think the Ravens will keep him on the practice squad. If they have a problem with depth that develops anytime before other teams in the league, then he'll be elevated. And if not, then he might be taken as later in the year.
So in your mind, this is bringing this up. First of all, I wanted to say the tenor of that press conference, Pat Ricard's press conference, kind of like made me start thinking about it because they're asking him about, man, they were trying you at left guard and now you asked to go back to fullback and the health, and it just wasn't a happy type press conference. Like, what were you, how are you going to dominate? What's everything? It was just kind of like asking him about his place on the team is where most of the questions seem to be coming from, which kind of drowned that out. But you make a good point. The Eric Tomlinsons of the world that we saw a couple of years ago, guys come off the street and are able to be a functioning blocking tight end. My question to you is this: what are the chances that the Ravens just say, you know what, we have some pretty good offensive line depth, some guys that play tackle like Daniel Faalele, Patrick Ricard, whoever doesn't win the left guard spot could even do it, that we could stick in line, bring in a sixth offensive lineman instead of a blocking tight end for the, 5 to 10 plays we want to use someone other than Mark in that role, and just roll with the 3 tight ends who none of them are really, that's not their calling card, except for Mark, I want to say, but likely and Kolar, who are unproven blocking in line.
Yeah, I first of all, Kolar's gotten bigger, and he looks like he'll be a fine inline blocker. Likely has been a good run blocker. Usually, what that has meant is in level 2 and 3, that he's good in space there, keeping his feet, kind of the Miles Boykin kind of positive quality in terms of a run blocking receiver. In terms of Ricard, though, I think it's about, do they really want to give up on all he brought to the running game, either from the backfield, from motion, and can they trust somebody like Vokolek or probably Kolar to be the guy who can block from the backfield? They've been in motion. Is it that much harder? Well, Ricard is a much bigger man than any of the other tight ends of the team. So it's from that perspective, at least you'd think that they'd want to keep that around. I'm actually very concerned, by the way, about the Ravens changing to an 11 personnel run team and not being able to close out games in the same way anymore, not being able to take advantage of what Lamar brings to the table as much anymore in terms of a mesh point. And, if the offense is as good as they hope it will be, they're going to lead some games by 20 points. They're going to want to put them away, or even 2 touchdowns. And you're going to want to just take the time to have a good running game and have some persistent drives at that moment. So I don't really love the idea of cutting Patrick Ricard this year, I have to say.
Understood. And I mean, make no mistake about it. When it comes to blocking, he's far and away above. I mean, you can try to committee it and say, all right, we bring in the 6 offensive linemen here, or we feel kind of confident in Kolar to be able to handle some of the responsibilities, combination between him and Likely. Likely can do some of the move blocking stuff, but make no mistake about it. Pat Ricard can do it all, Ken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he except for really run a broad set of routes. He's exactly that guy. So yeah, I think you get a better blocker if you get an offensive lineman as the 6th, but then you give up all of the receiving things. Patrick Ricard is the middle choice. You get almost as good a blocker as an offensive lineman, blocking on the edge there, and more mobility probably than even most guards in the game. And you get a little bit of a receiving threat that they at least have to account for instead of just completely ignoring. And so I think he's in the middle there. And then if you really want to juice up your offense and have a guy who can receive, then you put a Vokolek in the backfield and he can run patterns for you and he can get downfield. You can throw over the top of some linebacker mismatches.
There you go. So moving on. Something I brought up to Jeff Z. Now, I thought I was being a little bit reckless with this thought, a little bit crazy with this thought, but Jeff Z didn't exactly shoot it down. He actually said that was something that he had thought about, is the possibility that Ravens 5th round pick, Kyu Kelly, he's been running to IR him, to have one of these, look, we're going to need you. We may need you. We believe in you enough to keep you. But early in the season, we have other guys that are more prepared to play at an NFL level. So Ravens rookies, usually safe, especially, within the first 4 or 5 rounds, they're usually safe bets to make the roster. But I'm wondering about Kyu Kelly's space on this roster because of all the other question marks that we have with injuries and new pieces and how to fit them all together. What do you think about that idea? Do you think that would be a possibility, something that Kelly would be open to? Or do you think this is kind of a little far-fetched, a little too unconventional for the Ravens?
It's not too unconventional. I think a lot of teams would consider that sort of a thing. Here's the problem, as I would see it, is that when you're not in the building practicing, when you're on the field, practicing with the team, because I presume you can still be in the meeting rooms and whatnot. I don't think there's a limitation under the CBA on doing that. So you can come in, you can rehab. If most of his shortcomings were physical in nature, or they were something that could be kind of taught on the inside of the building and out on the field without breaking whatever rules they have for this, then I'd say there's something to be gained from that. I think what Kelly needs is probably more experience working with live fire, ideally. So in the preseason, hopefully he gets plenty. And then also other players opposite him, some receivers opposite him, and really trying to figure out, how do I cover this guy? How do I keep track of him? How do I leave my hand on him and see where he's going, and then look back for the football? And, all those things that you have to process on an NFL field. That's kind of where I found his play to be a little short. And, in all honesty, I thought he played pretty well in the first preseason game. So we'll see. He's one of the guys I'm really interested in seeing again. There's a couple DBs I'm really looking at in this game. And it'll be interesting to see if he takes a step forward. I think I would think that the IRing him is probably off the table just because the Ravens' shortage at defensive back is so extreme that you have a hard time even filling the a 5 or 6 man DB room with enough people.
Understood.
CB
room, right? We have the DBs, CBs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, Ken, I don't even know who to list at safety and corner because you got Ardarius, you got Derek Worley, who's obviously been working at safety, but there's a world where I could see him in a game at outside cornerback just because things are getting tough and guys aren't ready. But yes, Ken, pointing out the obstacles, Kyu Kelly not being able to practice with the team if he's put on IR. How do you get better if you're not practicing with the team? And on the preseason note, Ken, I was surprised how late he came in the game and
yes,
how few of snaps he played. I would really like to see them try to test the young man come Monday night and next week, get him some reps earlier in the game and just see what he has. Because my opinion is, Ken, where all this is coming from, if they don't have confidence in him and if they want to run Seymour out there before him and all these other guys, you got Darby in the room now, Brandon Stevens ahead of him. If they don't trust him to play, he's not doing us any good because we really need guys who can play right now while Marlon's out and we're trying to figure out the other 2 corner spots.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they don't have those guys in the building right now. So I think meaning I don't think they have a 6-man corner room you can put together right now. Right now they have Darby and Washington. You have Stevens. You have Worley, who's the hybrid at safety. You have Seymour. And then you have a bunch of guys who might or might not make the team. And that includes Mollett and, Kyu. And you could really talk about guys like Jeremy Lucien as well. Jalen Armour-Davis, he has enormously been stunted developmentally by not being able to be on the field, both in practice and in the games. He's now missed every preseason game he could possibly have played. There's 4. He's missed them all. He's only played in 3 regular season games, I think, or maybe it's 3 plus 1 snap or something like that. But he's barely played, and that follows up a career where he barely played at Alabama. And the shortcomings are all there in terms of not being able to find the football in the air. It's game skills. I wouldn't want to put Kyu through that same ringer. And the Ravens see something they like. I've made the point many times. There is nothing in his statistics to say this guy's going to be a good NFL corner. He gives up way too many yards per target. And so if you look at traits, you might be able to see something. If you look at how he performed against a fairly mediocre conference, in the Pac-12, the Pac whatever it is now, it's just not very impressive. So, anyway.
Yes. And Ken, you were with me on draft night. I was with you on draft night, and I wasn't thrilled about the pick
Mm-hmm.
because for me, corners is one of the most traits based. I mean, if he has a bad yards per target, but he's a great athlete, I could say, okay, 5th round, let's take a shot with this guy. Let's see if we can teach him. Mm-hmm. He's fast, he's big, he's strong, all this other stuff. But with Kelly, that wasn't the case. That's not his game. He's a smart corner, a zone corner, gets in on his share of plays due to IQ. But man, all of our opinions aside, if the coaches were playing him that little and that late with the cornerback room in flux, to me, that tells me, take our thinking out of it, what the coaches are thinking about him. And that's what really started making me think, man, could they just say, look, we're going to need corners later in the season, but this kid ain't ready to play. We'd rather get another team's cuts or somebody else with some experience in here before we throw him into the fire. Yes, it would stunt his growth, but we have to do what we have to do to win some games early in the season. So that's kind of where I was going with that. And on Jalen Armour-Davis, just to comment on that, maybe throw it back at you. I thought the pick itself was a great pick. When you're getting a guy with those kind of, just like I spoke about with Kyu, Jalen Armour-Davis is the opposite. He's got the credentials. He's got the Alabama to his name. Big corner, fast corner. Okay, he wasn't able to stay healthy in college, but let's get him in the room. Let's get him with professional trainers and see what we can have. But Ken, Harbaugh at his press conference, I'm not sure if you just saw it. It was right before we came on. but was basically taking a stance of defending Jalen Armour Davis. Hey, look, this is part of the process. He left practice today, but he's okay. There's a chance he's going to play Monday. Kind of like, don't give up on this guy yet. We're still hoping for him. But me, it's like my pessimism is kicking in hardcore. It's like he hasn't been able to stay healthy in college. He wasn't able to stay healthy last year. He's not healthy. What you said, he's never played in a preseason game. Like the time is now for Jalen Armour Davis. So I mean, like when I'm trying to make my plans for early in the season, I don't even know what we have in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's an area where if you look at the Ravens' area of surplus, it's very clear exactly where that is. It's inside linebacker. If you were willing to make the move from Patrick Queen now, and there are reasons to do it in terms of a little bit of cap this year, but more importantly, you get something for Patrick Queen before he walks for almost nothing. I think you really have to look at the possibility of Patrick Queen being traded for somebody who maybe was just drafted. The guy that I would be really interested in trading, because the health was the big issue, and that seems to be okay now, is Kelly Ringo. 4th round pick, could have been higher, certainly, in terms of where his measurables were and how good he was. He's playing with the Eagles. The Eagles are absolutely loaded at defensive back. And you might look at it as saying, well, then that means we're only getting a 4th round pick for Queen. Well, you're also getting a first-year player and a guy with a little bit higher pedigree filling a position of need and getting something for Queen before he walks for a compensatory pick, but it won't necessarily be a super high one. It might end up being a 5. It might end up being a 4, and it's also deferred. If you want to invest in the team for 2023, I think that kind of a trade might make sense.
There you go. Patrick Queen fans in the comments, go ahead and unload on my buddy Ken here. All right. I do. They're out there, Ken. I have a vocal group, a kind group, by the way. They're my subscribers are great. But yeah, we like to have fun on this show, Ken. So that's what makes it beautiful, is being able to talk about those kind of things. Corner's definitely a worry of mine, Ken. I mean, I've been worried since the darn draft for Pete's sake.
What if you get 2 players? Because Eli Ricks was undrafted, but what if the Eagles were willing to give up both Ricks and Ringo for Patrick Queen? Would you do it?
Well, man, you know where I had both on my board. I had both as draftable players. Like beyond that, the day 3 value is what I put on those. Like if you can get those guys in the 4th round, I would sign me up. I had them higher than Tavius Robinson in the 4th round. I would have definitely taken the chance on Ringo or Eli Ricks.
I did the cornerback show on mine with Crawford, and we both had him at number 5 of all cornerbacks.
There you go.
So, there was the injury issue, and I have to admit I probably underplayed the danger of that. But now, look, I mean, it seems to be okay right now. So.
Right. And, I was lower on Ricks than that, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, that difference in opinion is really doesn't mean much now. The guy looks like he can play. The guy looks like he's got a good head on his shoulders and was overmatching, Josh Johnson, whoever was in the game at that time. Pretty much reading the ball, eyes on the receiver, eyes on the ball. So talented corners at any level, and to have that kind of control over them for the next however 3 or 4 years really makes a lot of sense. So Ken, this game on Monday, let's take a look at it. What are you looking for on offense? For the offense on Monday, and it was announced Huntley won't play, so it'll be the Josh Johnson, Anthony Brown show. Might not be the best quarterback play game here. Classic, like last preseason game type quarterback play. What are you looking for on offense?
So we did our show on this last night, and yet that's exactly what I had expected on quarterback. At running back, I'd like to see a lot from Keaton Mitchell in this game. I think that he needs to close out. It's really a battle between him and Gordon. I don't think Gordon's going to be on the team, but I think that Mitchell either will be on the team or they'll try and slip him onto the practice squad. But if you look at the Ravens' history of secreting away speed backs on the practice squad, it's not very good. Mizell got taken for that, and Raheem Mostert, who ended up being a hell of a player. You just don't want to take that risk. So I think I really like the generalized speed that the Ravens have, and I'm more positive about Monken using that than I am about Monken making the receivers be great. Even I think that, you know, a guy who really values space can create it in terms of his scheme. This is going to be what Greg Roman can do with an extra blocking tight end. Monken is going to be able to do with a speed guy, and they have Duvernay, Hill, Flowers, and Keaton, all who kind of fit that bill. Flowers I want not used in the gadgety role because I think he has too much value to peeling the top off the defense. But the other guys in space, they're dangerous as hell, and it'd be great to have them there.
And you know, Ken, my opinion, just before the season goes on, I think Keaton Mitchell is even more dangerous in space than Duvernay. Say, I agree with you 100% about Zay. Let's use him not only downfield but in that mid-range area. Let's let him create for some bigger plays. You know, obviously he's special with the ball in his hands, so it wouldn't surprise me to see a gadget play with Flowers here or there or a bubble screen. But Keaton Mitchell, he's got this sneaky potential, in my opinion, to be a running back 1 or, you know, 1A, part of the committee, 1B, however you want to put it, depending on how much the coaches trust his body to take. He's just got that explosive playmaking ability that could take over right now. So I'm really excited about Keaton Mitchell. Anything else on offense before we switch over to defense?
Yeah, I'll go to the offensive line in just a second, but let me say one more thing about Mitchell. Very evident, his speed is just pops out at camp. He hit the corner twice on Friday, where he just outran the linebacker. It was almost like watching Michael Vick outrun people back in the day in terms of, you know, he takes away angles because he just runs right around them. And that was very impressive. We haven't seen that in a while from anybody in the Ravens backfield, probably including Hill. And I'm not trying to bash him because he's one of the speed guys, but really haven't seen that in the group of older backs that they've had. And even in Dobbins, who's fast, but he's more of a fancy cutting back as well.
There you go. So offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line. So there's 4 players that we'll see. I think actually Simpson is probably very close to securing the left guard spot. So we'll look at where he enters during the game. If he enters early, if he leaves early, that's a very strong indication that they've made their decision. If in terms of Saleh, I think the things to look for are, when does he enter? And are they kind of alternating series all through the game? Or is Saleh playing a lot, maybe both at left guard, right guard, maybe even at tackle, maybe at left tackle in this game, just to see if he can do it? They're grooming him at that point to be a backup. And, you know, I think based on what we saw in the first game, Simpson played extremely well, Saleh not so much. And he missed about 7 blocks. I did score him down for the very significant penalty, which dropped him into the F range as far as my scoring goes. But even if he hadn't had that, if that had only been a pressure, and he was getting beat on the play, so it looked like a pressure or worse, then it would have been in the middle of the D range if he could have just converted that penalty into a pressure. So he's a player that I think has lots of future value for the Ravens. I just don't. I was skeptical from the start, honestly, about it being in 2023. Although I'm always hopeful. Whenever you can get a rookie to start, it's a big deal because it means they're going to get on-field live fire. They're going to develop probably a little bit quicker, and they're going to give you 4 years of value potentially, and that's always nice. But the Ravens are very good at developing linemen, and I think he'll be a better player next year than he is this year.
Agreed. In fact, I was talking with Coach Evans. Coach Evans was able to get him on his busy schedule, and the thing that stuck out to me about Saleh, first of all, I agree with you with Simpson. He looked ultra comfortable. You know, he looked like a veteran. The difference between Simpson and Saleh, it was just, you know, night and day as far as comfort level, intangibles. But Saleh was getting beat with the basic, as coach calls it, the grip, dip, and rip. You know, basically just being shedded. A push-pull is what I usually refer to it as. And these are moves that, as someone who's been in the league even for a little while, I mean, this is like the fastball. You know, you got to be able to hit the fastball. Yeah. You got to be able to block the push and pull. He doesn't have a lot of experience with that or any with that, at least at the same timing as a college right tackle, as a defensive tackle in the NFL, which is boom, it's there, and bam, it's, you know, you're shed. So my confidence in Saleh dropped dramatically, if I'm being honest, just because of the way he was getting beat. It wasn't just he was getting beat. He was getting dismissed with what I would consider basic moves, Ken.
Push pull. What you're talking about, if I understand, the defensive lineman gets to the body, and then he's able to pull the lineman forward as he goes around him. And the only counter move to that is effective use of your arms. I mean, that's pretty much all an offensive lineman has to work with, or most of what, he has his balance and whatnot. But you got to be a violent hand user to beat some of these moves. We saw Travis Jones have an unbelievable game in that first week, and I guess we'll talk about him a little bit later. I thought the Eagles were really trying to get him stopped, but it didn't look like it at times because his rip move was just way too much for anybody who was opposite him.
Exactly. So let's talk about him. Somebody with a really good push-pull move. I mean, he'll stack you up, get you on your toes, and then grown man you to wherever he wants. We saw it in the run game last year, Ken. Derek Wolfe, another good player. In the run game, I was always taught that it's a stack and shed. You stack is when you push them and you're peeking, and your shed is obviously when you shed them. But Travis Jones, I guess he's somebody to watch on the defensive line for Monday night. Or are you to the point, Ken, where if he doesn't play, you're not going to shed a tear over there because you've seen him?
Oh, if he doesn't play, they know what's up. They've got it figured out. I would love to see him take care of the offensive lineman for Washington. I would love to see that, but I'm already convinced. And my question is now, how do you use him? Because if I'm Mike McDonald, I'm manufacturing every one-on-one opportunity I can for Travis Jones. That becomes a basic part of how I want to rush the passers, particularly on early downs, but on late downs too. I see him as a guy who could be in there on third down. Even with the signing of Clowney, which kind of goes against that to a degree, because Matabika, you figure, be on the field, and now you're going to have Clowney and Owe and Ajabo. There will always be out there probably for the other three spots. But Travis Jones, they had no one who could block him one-on-one. And the more you can manufacture that multiple ways, he's going to have to face a certain number of double team on run plays, and there might be no avoiding that. But if you move him to 3-tech and you play Pierce at 1, you can avoid some of it there. And obviously getting him lined up head on a guard is it's an brutal, unfair massacre for the guard. Yeah.
I mean, you can only double team one, Ken.
That's right.
Michael Pierce isn't a wallflower either. He can beat you one-on-one. He showed that. That's why he commands the double teams in the first place. I would love to see it. They actually asked Travis about that today. Man, a few words, Travis Jones. He was basically like, in the goal line. That's what he said. The goal line will be tough to move, but I'm with you. I want to see it early in games. It'd be nice to see it in this game if they messed around with that formation. Just give him a chance, man, because I think he's got some sneaky ability to finish. Saw that at UConn. Of course, it's UConn, but to be able to bend in a way that maybe Brandon Williams couldn't, per se, just be able to finish, a little long reach, a little flexibility in the body to be able to get the quarterback as he's trying to get away from you. So we talked about Travis Jones. We talked about Kelly, wanting to see him earlier. I agree with both of those. Is there anything else that you're looking for on defense on Monday?
The inside linebacker competition will play its way out. So Phillips and Ross are two guys, and Harrison, that are probably all competing for a spot. I don't think Welch is going to be on the team at this point. He was one of the last entrants. What happens to Simpson is really a question. I think as camp has gone along, and I was never really buying into the notion that it was going to be easy to get Simpson on the field on third down. A lot of people have talked about, it'll be an overhang, or it'll be this, or it'll be that. There's just, the Ravens have a lot of problems at slot corner. Nobody's talking about playing Trenton Simpson at slot corner. So once you're at that point, then I think, it's going to be very hard to find him defensive snaps this year. So this will be a developmental year for him. He'll play a lot of special teams, and Harbaugh kind of said that originally in terms of that, and then he'll be ready for Patrick Queen to move on. Now, in my opinion, this team's ready for Patrick Queen to move on right now, to the degree that they have a gaping hole at another position they've got to fill, and they've got a set of pretty damn good players behind Queen, many of whom could play on that weak side.
There you go, Ken McKusick. So final thoughts time, Ken. Just general thoughts as camp closes. You were out there some. If this is the last time we speak between now and the regular season, What are some things that you're thinking about other than Queen? I think we covered that pretty good. Is there anything that comes to mind or stuck out during camp?
This is Queen, the cornerback situation. I would say that the outside linebacker situation and not having a Sam worries the hell out of me. So Malik Ham, that's something maybe to look for in this next game. Is does he drop to coverage a little bit? You hear Billick talk about this and trying to match your players up in a little bit of an uncomfortable position, take them out of their comfort zone, see if they can handle certain responsibilities. I'd like to see Ham drop into coverage. That would be a really significant indicator that he plays into their plan somehow. May still be high on the practice squad, elevated, injury comes up, whatever. Could be if something happens to Tavius Robinson, he's the guy who replaces him, and then you have a Sam back up out of it. Could be a few things, but he's a guy I have my mind on, my thoughts and eyes on as well.
So you think he has a chance to play Sam, or you'd at least just like to see him try?
Yeah, a chance to play Sam. Would like to see him try. He's been playing on that offensive right side in the preseason. I think every time, but I'll say at least primarily. Let me be safe in terms of how I say it. And so when he's on the right side, the Ravens really aren't making a choice left or right. And I don't know how many times he dropped in the couple of games. I should look that up. But you're typically going to be on the side with the tight end, which means you have responsibility for him in one of two ways. Either you've got to deal with him as a blocker, or you have to potentially cover him on some plays.
There you go. Ken McKusick. One more time, Ken, for me. Anything you want to plug, where people can find you, now's the time before we say goodbye.
FilmStudyBaltimore.com, at FilmStudyRavens on Twitter. You can see that. Do have one more interesting thing coming up. We have a podcast I'm doing with Jeremy Lucian that'll be recorded on Tuesday and come out before the last preseason game. Now, he's a bubble guy, and he may even be a bubble guy in terms of making the practice squad or not. But he had kind of an interesting first game, moving up to safety, and I think he might be somebody to make the last preseason game fun to root for a guy. He'd be an excellent choice there, and he has some local ties that are kind of interesting. We're going to talk about his path to the NFL, and more importantly, the UDFA process. That's what I'm really trying to get to. Wow,
that should be a good show. That's something that I'm going to be very interested in and tuning in for sure. So thank you, Ken. I appreciate you, buddy. And with that, I want to say thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Thanks for tuning in. We have discussions previously on the channel. I have a Jadeveon Clowney cut up. Coach Evans and I talking about the left guards and what we saw. Michael Crawford talking about this running game, as you know, Ken, that he charts very diligently since 2018. He's charted every run. So some good stuff here on the channel, Ken. And I appreciate you joining us. Can you please say good night to the people or goodbye to the people?
Good night, people. Hope you'll. I'll try and be more diligent about looking at the comments this time and try to respond. But thanks for listening.
Nice. Hey, get into the comments. I will send them to Ken. I promise you. Thanks, guys.